finally have a date for the same-sex marriage plebiscite, the 11th of February, but everything I just said doesn't mean anything because it could still not happen.
I'm not gay, but if I was, I would want equal rights. I'm not gay, but if I were, I would marry who I like. It's not fair, I'm not gay, that the government has a say.
The federal cabinet has signed off on plans to hold the plebiscite early next year. The government has also pledged $7.5 million each in public funding to both the yes and no campaigns on top of the $160 million it will cost to host the plebiscite. This news basically means nothing because
you will recall that the results of the election were such that the government does not have a majority in the Senate.
the Greens, Nick Xenophon team and Darren Hinch are all planning on opposing the plebiscite bill. Labor haven't officially said whether they'd block it or not, but Bill Shorten had this to say earlier.
I think the plebiscite is a bad idea. I also think it's a bad idea because of the cost. So we have a lot of reservations about this.
So, yeah, I don't think Labor is going to support the plebiscite either. One person who definitely doesn't want Labor to support it or for the plebiscite to go ahead is Sally Rugg from Get Up. Now, Sally, what's actually wrong with the plebiscite for you?
So we already know that the plebiscite is going to be exorbitantly expensive, it's ethically fraught, it's potentially going to be really divisive, and it's procedurally unnecessary. But this morning we learned a whole bunch of new details because the legislation for the plebiscite was confirmed. And the thing that most people are upset about, including myself, is the fact that the government want to give $15 million of public funding to both sides of the campaign. We already know what, anti-equality groups like the Australian Christian Lobby, for instance, are capable of. So the thought that public funds will be potentially funneled into groups like that to run advertising campaigns like that, it's completely unacceptable.
All right, well, the most recent Reach-Tel poll suggests that a majority of Australians support same-sex marriage, and so a plebiscite would be successful. So why not let people vote in February? What are those sort of procedural issues you were referring to earlier? A
plebiscite is procedurally alien for Australia. We don't have plebiscites. We elect a parliament and they make decisions for us. And the thought of the fact that the gay community have been singled out as a group of people whose rights will be decided on by the majority is really offensive and really humiliating.
Okay, we learned today that the plebiscite question will be, should the law be changed to allow same-sex couples to marry? That's the question. You're not happy with the wording, though, so why is that?
The main concern for me is the fact that it uses that prescriptive term same-sex couples, and by explicitly saying same-sex couples, they're actually excluding some intersex people and some people with non-binary genders. So if it's not equality for all of us, it's really not equality at all.
What would you like it to say? What would you like the question to be?
So the question that marriage equality advocates have put forward is very similar to the one that was in Ireland. And it was something to the effect of, should two people be able to get married regardless of their sex? Really simple.
All right, well, Sally, at the moment, the only real option on the table that exists, at least for the next 3 years, is a plebiscite. Why give that up? And it's just going to delay this further.
The plebiscite is the delay. The plebiscite is the delay tactic. Blocking it isn't delaying it. The plebiscite was invented by Tony Abbott a year ago. And we've seen today with the legislation that's come through, it's been completely crafted by people in the far-right faction of the coalition who really don't want marriage equality. The plebiscite isn't a viable way forward for marriage equality, and that's why we're calling on all members of Parliament, including the Labor Party, to block the legislation so that we can focus on getting a free vote.
Sally Rugg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.